You don't need to tell me, as you don't need me to tell you, the primary theme of the 2024 election is that Donald Trump was a singularly existential threat to American democracy. He was frequently compared in what was intended to be a literal comparison with Adolf Hitler. And we frequently heard that he would be an existential threat to American democracy, that this would perhaps be the last election we'd ever be able to vote in, that he would impose a fascist dictatorship on American political life, that he would send dissidents, both in politics and journalism, to concentration camps that we were told he intends to build, and that essentially he would recognize no limitations in the Constitution or in American law, that his will would be supreme, and his will is to impose a dictatorship, not just of authoritarianism, but of tyranny and fascism in the mold of Adolf Hitler. That is what we were told explicitly. And that is what makes this scene that happened today at the White House so either bizarre, depending on how you want to see it, or so revealing. The sitting president of the United States, nominally, you may have remembered, is the Democrat Joe Biden, who originally thought he was going to run against Trump, and they said all sorts of incredibly acrimonious things about each other, as happens in elections. Joe Biden frequently said that Trump was a fascist. That was the main closing argument of the Kamala Harris campaign, to suggest that he is a fascist, to say so explicitly over and over. And yet, Joe Biden did something that Donald Trump did not do when he was in his transition and then ultimately left, which is he invited Donald Trump to the White House today. There's nothing obligatory about that. It's purely optional whether the president wants to do that or not. And he sat down next to Donald Trump, and the White House said the reason they were doing it is because it's a White House tradition and custom. And Donald Trump's not anything out of the ordinary. He's just like any other president who was elected and deserves all of the same treatment and civility and accommodation as anybody else, which is extremely odd if you actually believe any of the things you were saying about Donald Trump during the election that just concluded with his sweeping victory. Here is Joe Biden today in the Oval Office, where he invited Adolf Hitler to sit with him in the Oval Office, and here's how Joe Biden treated him.
Well, Mr. President-elect and former President, thank you. Donald, congratulations. Thank you. And looking forward to having like we said, a smooth transition. Do everything we can to make sure you're accommodated, what you need. And we're going to get a chance to talk about some of that today. So
good.
Welcome back.
And, thank you very much. And politics is tough, and it's in many cases not a very nice world, but it is a nice world today, and I appreciate it very much. A transition that's so smooth, it'll be as smooth as it can get, and I very much appreciate that, Joe.
You're welcome.
That was so moving. Biden said to him, congratulations. Why would you congratulate someone you believe is a fascist, someone who's about to end American democracy, someone who's about to send people on your party like AOC into camps? She predicted she was on her way to camps. Rachel Maddow said that. Keith Olbermann said that. Several of the women on The View said that. It was a common theme of this last election that Trump is not like Hitler, but in fact is a Hitlerian figure. Now, that's not to say that Democrats should refuse to allow him to enter the White House, but why would you normalize him that way? Why would you shake his hand so warmly and heap praise on him that way and congratulate him if you actually believed anything that you had been saying about him for the last 8 years, certainly the last year? Just as a reminder of what some of that was, here from Politico in December of 2023, the Biden camp posted a graphic with Hitler pictured next to Trump, or with Trump pictured next to Hitler. The move was both highly aggressive and part of a calculated effort to link the 45th president and the Nazi leader who sat by Joe Biden's side today in the Oval Office at his invitation. Here was NBC News in January of this year. Biden argues that Trump remains a threat to democracy, a case his campaign thinks resonates with voters. Guess what? It didn't. Both because they didn't believe it and because that isn't the sort of thing that they're worried about. Now we can move to the next one. The next one we have here, which is from AP, October 2024. The headline was, "What is fascism? And why does Kamala Harris say Donald Trump is a fascist. This has been the theme for at least a full year. And then the New Republic, which has become once again a popular magazine among the Democratic establishment, published a full article, full magazine in June of this year, June of 2024, entitled American Fascism, what it would look like. And there you see what it would look like. It's Donald Trump with a Hitler mustache. And they explained at length why they believe this comparison is not just metaphorical, but actually quite literal. Now, either one of two things are true here. Either Democrats, liberals, the people in the media who were saying these things so insistently over and over didn't actually believe them. They were just trying to scare the American people into believing that we were about to be taken over by Hitler, in which case, well, to put it mildly, they are and do everything they accuse others of. But I think the bigger point here is that I know there are some liberals who really do believe this, some prominent ones, some ones in media who have just worked themselves into this kind of frenzy. They all really do talk to and for each other and hear no dissent outside. Earlier today, The Guardian announced that it was leaving X. It was no longer using Twitter at all. And many liberals have done the same thing. They're now seeking out other platforms where only liberals reside there, only liberals use it. They never have to hear any dissent. That is the world that they try and create everywhere they go. That's really the world in which they live. And as a result, when everyone in your world, your little cloistered world, is telling you the same thing over and over every day, and you're saying the same thing over and over every day, which is that Trump is Hitler, that he's a fascist threat, that he's going to put people in camps, you actually do start to believe it. Many of them do. And I think if you actually believe that, you ought to be out in the streets protesting. You ought to be enraged that Joe Biden would invite Hitler to the White House. You ought to be doing things like what 1,000 or so Trump supporters did on January 6th. Not just protesting in Washington, but breaking into buildings. I mean, after all, you're saving American democracy from Adolf Hitler. You're saving all the people he's going to persecute, all the people he's going to put in camps. There's such a mismatch between the things they work themselves up into believing and their actions and their behavior. Obviously, they believe that Trump is going to be just any other president who got elected by the American people, deserves the full powers of the White House. In fact, just as it happened in 2017 when Democrats were claiming that Trump was this Hitler figure, that he was an authoritarian, and Democrats in Congress, including Nancy Pelosi and Adam Schiff, voted to renew the domestic surveillance powers under FISA to give to Donald Trump, the same person they were accusing of being a Hitler figure and authoritarianism. They then voted 6 months after he was in office to hand him unlimited spying powers. In fact, Nancy Pelosi and Democrats like Adam Schiff blocked any attempt just to limit or reform those powers. Why would you vote to give Adolf Hitler domestic spying powers? And then earlier this week, there was a bill that would empower the president unilaterally to declare certain NGOs to be advocates of terrorism. And based on that unilateral, unchallenged finding by the president, their tax-exempt status would be revoked. And obviously, it was intended to allow Trump to do what this bill is intended to do, which is target critics of Israel, pro-Palestinian groups, and punish them for their speech by removing their nonprofit status. But it would also obviously allow Trump to do that to any NGO that he wanted. The ACLU, Planned Parenthood. If you really believe that he was a Hitler figure, why would you then go and vote to give that to him? Now, we'll cover that tomorrow. It actually didn't pass, although it almost did. 52 Democrats joined all but one House Republican, which was Thomas Massie, in order to support it. But you see this gigantic breach between what these people claim they believe over and over and over every day and what their behavior actually is. And I think it's very worthwhile to keep that in mind the next time they resort to one of their conspiracy theories or frenzied hysteria, which will be very, very quickly. Thanks for watching this clip from System Update, our live show that airs every Monday through Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern exclusively on Rumble. You can catch the full nightly shows live or view the backlog of episodes for free on our Rumble page. You can also find full episodes the morning after they air across all major podcasting platforms, including Spotify and Apple. All the information you need is linked below. We hope to see you there.